Supposedly wanted by Aston Villa and admired in boardrooms across the continent, the Bluebirds reckoned they had pulled off a real coup. Shine for a couple of years with Cardiff, so the theory went, and Solskjaer would end up at Manchester United as Sir Alex Ferguson's real heir apparent. Well, he certainly ended up at Old Trafford, alright, but in spite of, rather than because of, his crack at the Premier League with Cardiff. Solskjaer won just 3 of 18 games in charge of Cardiff, took them to rock bottom in the table and down into the Championship. He lasted just 7 matches into the new campaign before Vincent Tan, who had backed Solskjaer with money and assembled what was dubbed the biggest and best squad in Championship history, lost patience and ruthlessly fired his manager. How ironic that Solskjaer's first game in interim charge of Manchester United should be back at his old Cardiff City stomping ground. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, he will probably be afforded a warm reception by Bluebirds supporters, as well as United fans. But that won't change the opinion of some who rate him as amongst the very worst Cardiff managers of recent times. They base their opinion upon the evidence of what was presented in front of their very eyes, a Solskjaer reign that ended in utter chaos, confusion and crass decision-making. You can read our take on what happened here. 5 years on, Bluebird supporters can scarcely believe that Manchester United, perhaps the world's biggest football club, have turned to a Cardiff City flop in their hour of need. Fairly or unfairly, some are openly laughing about it. It is up to Solskjaer to prove at Old Trafford he is nowhere near as bad a manager as his horrendous time with Cardiff suggested. He will, of course, be working with much better players than the ones who are at his disposal in South Wales. That in itself is a good starting point. I mean, who can't get Paul Pogba to shine, Jose Mourinho aside, of course. Solskjaer did do well in charge of United's reserve team, and as manager of Norwegian side Molde. He won the league with them pre-Cardiff. Post-Cardiff, he topped the Europa League group with them, which contained Ajax, Celtic and Fenerbahce. As Solskjaer discovered with the Bluebirds, managing Molde in Norway and taking charge of a Premier League team are galaxies apart. Not to put too fine a point upon it, his Cardiff reign was simply chaotic. Solskjaer continually tinkered with his team and didn't appear to know his best lineup. Only once did he stick with the same starting X1 from game to game. No wonder there was little shape or pattern to Cardiff's team. He picked players out of position, like midfield dog of war Aaron Gunnarsson in the playmaking 10 role, and right-footed centre-back Matthew Connolly at left-back. He brought in 3 Norwegians, Mats Daly, Magnus Wolfegrim and Joe Berget, who had no chance of coping with the demands of Premier League football, let alone a relegation fight. Solskjaer likened Daly to Manchester City maestro David Silva, a player who could run between the lines and torment opposition defenses. In the end, he simply looked a player hopelessly out of his depth at this level. Manchester United sack Jose Mourinho ahead of Cardiff City clash. The new manager had breezed into Cardiff, pledging an adventurous, free-flowing brand of football to wow the fans. He wanted ball-playing centre-backs, which is why he signed Bruno Manga and Spaniard Juan Cala, and Old Trafford fans will certainly warm to that style after being bored by Jose Mourinho. But Cardiff weren't suited to going gung-ho. That was best demonstrated by a 3-6 home thrashing by Liverpool, a kind of we'll score approach to the 90 minutes. Needless to say, it suited Luis Suarez and the other Anfield superstars far better than it did the Bluebirds. A dejected Solskjaer tries to spur on his team image. Chris Fairweather, Hugh Evans' agency. There were positives: home wins over Norwich and Fulham in a smash-and-grab 1-0 away triumph at Southampton. That unexpected result down on the South Coast gave Cardiff fans hope Solskjaer could actually keep them up. The bubble was immediately burst as they lamentably lost 3-0 at Newcastle and 4-0 at Sunderland. The Cardiff team against Sunderland resembled Mourinho's last stand at Liverpool at the weekend: lopsided, hopelessly outplayed, outfought, and with players who seemed to lack belief in the tactics being adopted. There were other horror shows: 0-4 v Hull, 0-3 against Crystal Palace, and, worst of lot, a 0-3 loss against arch-rivals Swansea when Solskjaer's team didn't appear to grasp the magnitude of what the Welsh derby truly meant to the people. There was simply no consistency. Not of the positive sort, anyhow. Despite going down, Cardiff stuck by their man and sanctioned a huge championship spending spree that summer. Solskjaer had to deliver from the off. 7 games into the new season, following back-to-back home losses against Norwich and Middlesbrough, he was toast. His team were booed off in his final game, fans believing the side were as lacking in shape and pattern in that game as they had been at the beginning of the Solskjaer reign. Instead of free-flowing pass-and-move football, Cardiff had resorted to route one lump it up to Kenwyne Jones. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, action images, Jason Cairns up, you just sensed that wasn't the real Solskjaer. He was the manager who brought Brazilian stardust to the Welsh capital in the shape of Fabio, a swashbuckling right-back whose surges down the right marked him down as a fan's favourite. He also brought in Manga and skipper Sean Morrison, key figures in the side's promotion under Neil Warnock. So it wasn't totally bad. But during his time when Cardiff, Solskjaer provided little evidence to suggest he was up to the task of managing the biggest club in the world. Manage them he will though, against Cardiff on Saturday evening. After years of state football under the former Special One, Man Utd fans will relish the more dynamic approach Solskjaer will bring to the party. He will play the Manchester United way, and this time he might, just might, succeed because he has superior players at his disposal. Solskjaer likes a 4-2-3-1 formation with full-backs bombing forward. Fabio, and to a lesser degree Declan John, were evidence of that with Cardiff. Good news for Luke Shaw, perhaps, after his troubles under Mourinho. He wants ball players further forward. Good news for Juan Mata, who always appeared on the periphery with Mourinho. Somehow, under Solskjaer, you can't see a static, non-creative midfield of Nemanja Matic, Marouane Fellaini and Ander Herrera, which was part of the Mourinho problem. He wants artists on the ball who, like Matt Staley, are capable of getting between the lines. Music to the ears of Mata and Jesse Lingard, while Anthony Martial and Marcus Rashford are also Solskjaer types of players. Solskjaer will let United's footballers express themselves. Adventurous, swashbuckling, which is something Mourinho spectacularly failed to do. However, to succeed at Old Trafford he will need far more consistency of selection, and far greater defensive resilience, than was remotely suggested during that chaotic Cardiff reign. Vincent and apart, Cardiff's hierarchy have never believed Solskjaer was as bad an appointment as results and performances suggested. He was nonetheless a desperate disappointment. His team just looked utterly confused. This is his opportunity to exorcise that ghost. Cardiff fans will need some convincing, and you can't blame them after the chaos they witnessed.